the day. Jeremy Banfield, elk biologist for the Game Commission, and Brian Burhan's executive director for the Game Commission, both past guests. So thanks for joining on this, especially for you, Jeremy. Busy, busy day, right? All about elk today. And here you are sitting down talking again about elk.
Thanks for having us. I feel like I guess it hasn't quite been a year because we moved the date.
Yes, we moved the date
it's been
up.
A little bit less than a year, but I truly feel like
All right, let's start with that. Why did we move the date up for pulling tags?
Okay,
for the Game Commission.
Simple reason is our archery season starts the second week of September, and previously when we were drawing the latter part of August, that's all of 3 weeks ish. That we were giving people to prepare for their hunt. We moved the drawing up about 4 weeks, and then we moved the archery season back 1 week. So we've now got about 8 weeks between when the drawing will occur today and when they start hunting, which is September 16th.
So basically it's just to give them more time to either scout on their own or find an outfitter.
I mean, what are you going to do in 3 weeks, right? It's a bit of a mess. So
yeah,
even give everybody
really
time.
Scheduling time off work, right? If you need to do that.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's why we moved it up. The rain decided to get the memo, and it came this morning.
I hope you're right. I hope it stays that way.
No, not coming again. It came this morning, right? Because it always rains at Elk Expo.
It does.
So we're getting ready. You're going to leave here.
And bull first. So we go antlered bulls for archery, cows for archery, bulls for general, cows for general, bum, all the way through. And that's it. I mean, that's
that's it. No, there is a third option.
There is.
Because you can choose any sex,
correct?
Right? Which is what I
option.
choose, right? I choose any sex just because. Listen, I would love to shoot a giant bull, right? Which Pennsylvania has some giant bulls, but I really want the elk meat because it tastes so good. So if I can get drawn for a cow tag, I'm gonna take it.
Most people choose any, actually. So the majority is any, and then followed closely by bulls, and then some people choose cow only. Not very many.
So, as far as how many tags are allotted this year, are we where we're at last year? Are we more?
We had a kind of a precautionary effort, and we bumped up on bulls a little bit because the second piece of that is we've been seeing say it's not necessary. Okay. So at some point, if you look at really heavily hunted populations, think Oregon, Washington, they'll have as few as 10 bulls per 100 cow. And there is research that says when you get below that, you can actually have breeding problems because there's just not enough bulls to be with all the cows. The flip side of that is traditionally like national parks where there is no hunting, it can be as high as 50 per 100. And we are generally right around 30, 40. Again, in the past few years, it's been increasing to the point where it's about 55 now. So we can afford to take more bulls. We should create that opportunity for the Pennsylvania sportsman.
Okay. So world-class bulls here, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Their new non-typical record was shot last year. What heard that makes it such a big draw, like, such a big deal to be able to hunt elk in Pennsylvania?
And you're just talking hunting, not necessarily the viewing component.
Let's start hunting first.
All right. I think partly it is simply the fact that Pennsylvania sells. I mean, we have such a strong hunting heritage here. Brian said it earlier, but we are number 2 only to Texas in the number of hunting licenses sold. So we've got a really, really strong hunting ethic in the state, and that creates a lot of hunters. That creates a lot of interest. Second, the flip side of that is also that we do have world-class elk. I mean, we've got enormous bull elk. We've been traditionally very conservative on bull tags, and that keeps the age class high, which keeps the antler structure mature, and those are probably the two main drivers behind that.
All right, now let's switch to the viewing side.
Okay.
Why? Because I want to be all-inclusive here,
yeah,
right?
No, absolutely.
So,
it's important to mention that.
This event, there are a lot of hunters that come up here, right? But there's a lot of families, there's a lot of non-hunters that come up here. Why is the elk country so good for viewing elk as well? Because you have to drive a long distance to find elk anywhere else.
That's part of it, right? So I would say that we've got large urban areas. We've got Pittsburgh, we got Philly, we got Buffalo, Erie, within 2 hours. Maybe not Philly, but those other areas, they're certainly within 2, maybe 2.5 hours drive. So there's a lot of population within a short distance. And secondly, it's just amazing. It is absolutely in the past 20 years,
elk is in
especially.
their name. They're doing, they're selling elk burgers, which don't come from the elk that are hunted. Make sure that everyone knows that, right? Like you can't sell wild game meat; those are farmed elk. But they're embracing that whole elk culture that is being built around here, which wasn't always the case,
Correct.
and still isn't always the case.
I do think I would agree with you that particularly in the last, I'll say, 15, 20 years, and really the last 5 years, it's really excessive amount of support, and elk is cool. It's sexy. It's neat.
Yeah.
It's they're real, and local people have capitalized on that.
I mean, we went so long in this region without a lot of elk, and now all of a sudden we have these elk. So it makes sense that it would take a little bit for farmers, for
They have a very
landowners.
different opinion.
Yes, to be like, oh, some of them can be around, right? But now, seeing that community involvement is great. Might as well capitalize on it, right?
Right.
If you got the people coming, you need the infrastructure to make it.
People won't come.
Yeah, or else people won't come. As the wind's picking up a little bit now.
Is that a tornado?
Oh, jeez. So, Jeremy, what do we need to know about elk? What do the people need to know? Last year we went through the whole biology of elk, the history of PA, elk, but today, right? What do we need to know about elk? What has changed consistent that we've had reaffirmed?
I mean, we could go a lot of different directions with that question. It's a very
Go whatever direction you
open-ended
want.
question. So let me just start off with how many we have. That's always one of the frequent things that we get. We do an aerial survey every year. It relies on radio-collared animals to kind of be spies, right? So the radio-collared animals are what we would call the marks, and then we use the aerial survey to fly over the top of them and basically count all the other animals that are with them. All of that is recorded, so we get 90-some hours of video footage that I have to go through and validate all those observations, but all of that translates into a population estimate, and I'm oversimplifying it a little bit. There's a formula that we use and stuff. I'm not going to try and describe it here. But essentially, this past, not exactly 1,278 elk in Pennsylvania. It comes with confidence intervals, but the best answer I can give is that we're somewhere between 1,300, 1,400 animals that are out there.
Why don't you just set up a checkpoint that each elk has to walk through and say, count me, right?
Yeah. The Census Bureau.
Yeah, I want to give a quick plug because I was up here in Benezet along with you for the Wild About Elk educational workshop.
Yeah, teachers.
For teachers, yeah, or state park. Gave a presentation on how you do the survey, right? And we got to see the map with all the lines, right? That the airplane flew and using thermal imaging and everything. It was really cool to see how that is done.
Yep.
And there's a lot of work that goes into it. You said 90 hours.
I mean, it's a lot of flying. It's a lot of, yes, it is a lot of work. One of the benefits of that is that small airplane crashes used to be, and probably still are, the #1 killer of biologists, right? So when we used to do aerial survey, you have to fly low and slow. You're near stall speed, something goes wrong, and the pilot just doesn't have time to recover and get the plane back up, and everybody goes down and dies. Because of the thermal camera that you talked about, and I should have said that, we do use a thermal camera that hangs from the belly of the plane. Because of that, they can fly a lot higher, so they're about 2,500 feet. They can fly a lot faster, and all of the magic is really done by the camera operator. Mm-hmm. She's in communication with the pilot, obviously, but it just allows them to fly higher, faster, safer, all around. And so we're using technology to the best of our ability, and we'll continue to do that, into the future to continually improve our population.
Yeah. And it's a big area, so it would seem a little needle in the haystack, but as you mentioned, the GPS callers sort of help focus in on some areas that, okay, if there's one there's a good chance this time of year
spies,
there's going to be
right?
a bunch. Spies.
They're the ones that are out there letting us.
They're turncoats.
Yeah, against their will, but yes. Our GPS collars stay on for about 3 years. They are programmed to fall off automatically, and there's like a separate battery for a drop-off device that's built into them that has a longer battery life than the battery of the collar, if that makes sense. So they're programmed in such a way that they will fall off before the battery dies, and we lose communication with it altogether.
So what else do we need to know? So is that, you mentioned that population estimate, is that higher, lower, about the same?
It's been slowly increasing. It's probably steady compared to last year, but over the past, if we look at the past 5 years, it's been a steady, slow increase.
Right. So are elk putting air quotes here, right, that everyone can see, are they escaping the elk range? And like, I got to worry about them walking park, or are they still pretty contained?
They are slowly, very slowly, expanding in their distribution. They are still within the elk management area, which is basically 2G, right? There is a little difference between the very eastern boundary of 2G and the elk management area, but it's subtle. For simplicity reasons, let's just say the elk management area is 2G. Within that area, we're only about 2/3 occupied, right? So the western half is occupied. There's tons of room to expand to the north and east. Lots of state forests, lots of state parks. You know, we're trying to keep the animals on public land so that they stay out of trouble. You mentioned farmers earlier. They can definitely be, they can get into conflicts with agriculture, okay? It's one thing to have 5 little floppy-eared whitetails in your cornfield, something totally different to have 5 elk in your cornfield.
Well, and then also that expanding that way would be less populous, so less chances of
Correct.
car impacts as well.
I mean,
right?
road density is lower on public land than it is on private property. So, yeah.
Okay. What else do we need to know before you got to go? You got to go here in a little
I
bit.
got a few minutes.
Okay. All right. All right.
About calf survival earlier and how that changed. We just finished up a calf survival project. So 2020 through 2022, those 3 years, we captured 50 cows per year, so 150 total, and we used VITs. I will not describe that here, but basically it gives us the ability to know when the animal calves. We'd actually literally get a text message on our phone that said, hey, this cow just dropped her calf. We'd run out there, find the calf, put a radio collar on the calf, and once the radio collar is on the animal, we can monitor it and tell whether it's alive or dead, which gives us survival, right? And when I say calf survival, I'm really only talking a year. So from birth to 1 year of age, at that point they're no longer a calf, they're now a yearling, so we're just focused on that first year of life. 3 years, 2020, 2021, 2022, we captured 134 calves, and we ended up with about 63% survival.
Is that a good number?
It's lower than before. So in the past, there was a calf study done prior to me being here in 2006 to 2009, and they had 82% survival. And that, again, is where that disparity comes from, where we backed off a little bit on the cow tags as a precautionary measure. Most of the predation in our study was, I shouldn't say most, a portion of it was due to predation, right? That's natural. So some black bear, some coyote. We did have a few animals hit by vehicles. We had a few animals taken legally during the hunt. We had a couple die from disease and things like that. So overall, it's not a bad number. It's just lower than what we had previously expected. The only other difference that I'll point out is that the previous studies that were done on calf survival, you know, early 2000s, things like that, were they didn't use VITs, so they may have missed the first few days of life. And because of newer technology, we were able to pretty much get it from birth all the way through to a year.
So that by missing those earlier days, they might have
Maybe
had a higher success rate, possibly. Possibly.
I got to be careful. Some of the authors of that original study might be listening, and they'd be highly offended if I said that. But yes, you could arguably say that they may have missed some of the most vulnerable periods in a calf's
I mean,
life.
that's sort of the way science works, right? As technology
Yeah, it
gets
gets
better,
better.
so that can sort of happen, right?
Yes.
That we can figure that out. How's he doing? You're his boss. How's he doing?
Doing great.
Okay.
He's my super boss.
So, okay.
There's a few chain links.
So, when it comes to the predation, you said bears, coyotes.
I should say canine.
Canine.
Technically, we said bears was a portion of it, and then canine was another one. It was difficult to make a distinction between coyote and feral dog. I will say that the likelihood of feral dogs being out there is slim. So most of that is probably due to coyote.
Okay.
But it's possible that there might be a few feral dogs out there that took some animals.
Do you have you studied? Do you know? Is there like a step down in predation from bears and coyotes as the calf gets bigger and then becomes a yearling? Like, does that, or are they still being preyed upon as adults? Like a pack of coyotes are coming and
It's
getting out?
really just the calf cohort
Okay.
that's going to be taken by coyotes and black bears. The main predator of adults is
Humans.
people. Yes,
Right.
So either directly through hunting or indirectly through cars and things like that.
Okay, yeah, because Pennsylvania we don't have those predators that are typically associated with adult.
Wolves, cougar, you know,
Yeah.
those are the animals.
No
that would
mountain
be-
lions.
That would be.
Had to bring that in.
No mountain lions.
I knew it was
I
coming.
won't tell you my background either.
That is a funny story. Used to research mountain lions.
My master's was on mountain lions.
So that's why you're here. So that's why you're
Let's
here.
not go down that road.
Now we know the truth comes
truth
out.
comes out.
All right. So, Jeremy, the excitement, right, for today
Yeah.
is,
Palpable.
yeah. I mean, you got three people here in the booth that don't work for the game commission that all have a vested interest in elk hunting, right? Excitement for hopefully getting a tag pull, but to be fair, it's going to be a pretty low number, right, of actual people. That being said, it's actually a pretty, let's say, you still have a pretty good chance. Like, I still have a pretty good chance in comparison to Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, a place like that, right?
Define chance. Like you're saying that
The probability is a little bit better here than other states. Or
I
no,
don't
or
know.
am I wrong?
I don't know that. So,
Okay.
and when you say Colorado, I mean, you can buy an over-the-counter tag in Colorado. You're talking about some of the special draw zones. or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I
For-
honestly-
for to be able to get a bull of similar
Sure.
caliber
Yeah,
at here.
I mean, you don't typically. There are fewer large antlered bulls per area in the western United States than there are in the state of Pennsylvania.
Now his email address is.
The odds are not good. Okay, I mean, I can't spin
Yeah, I
that
mean-
in any positive, like super positive way. The placation I can offer is it's $12.
Right.
Okay, so like the odds are not good of you drawing a tag in Pennsylvania, but it's $12 to put in, and you can't win if you're not in.
And it's better odds than the Mega Millions.
Yes. Okay, so we
Right?
know that. Yeah, like
Yeah,
I
I
always get
mean-
the complaint that you got better odds of being struck by lightning. That is not true. I did look that up one time, and that's like 1 in 7 million or something like that. And then the Mega Millions is like 1 in insane number. So
Yeah.
yes, you do have a better odds of pulling a Pennsylvania elk tag than you do of getting struck by lightning or winning the Mega Millions.
And to make it feel palatable, right, for the people like myself that haven't been drawn for years now, right? The money's going to a good cause. I'll let Brian answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, we go right back into our elk management program. That's, it takes a lot to research and manage these elk and do all the habitat work that we have going on. Working with our partners at DCNR and Kika. So it's a major investment. Not only helps elk, it helps a lot of wildlife.
So what are we doing to help manage the elk outside of the hunt, right, and the research? What kind of like boots on the ground work is being done?
Habitat, I mean, would be the main.
What does that
thing.
mean?
So, yeah, that's a good question.
Because when you get elk specific, it's going to be different than what you would do for white-tailed deer. It's going to be different
I mean, yeah,
than what
it's
you're going to do
different.
for pheasants or turkey. I mean, there's going to be overlap.
There are overlap,
right?
yes. There are
Yeah.
definitely overlaps.
but-
And things that we do in the name of elk, really do benefit a ton of different species. But the one limiting factor for eastern United States, Pennsylvania included, is herbaceous grassland type habitat, right? So in Pennsylvania, reclaimed strip mines, right, generally make pretty
Yep.
good elk habitat. Some of our game lands include those. The Game Lands 311, where we are today, includes a lot of reclaimed strip mines. But that's always a constant thing of trying to I got to be careful about saying like convert forested areas into grasslands, but take a forested area, thin it down some, and really turn it into more of an herbaceous understory where you have grasses and forbs on the understory, but you still may have some scattered trees, right? We like to refer to it more as a woodland savanna type environment versus a grassland, but still, you've got to have that herbaceous understory to support elk. They're more likely to graze than they are to browse. They will browse, particularly in winter, but if grass is available, typically that's what elk
We really don't want it. If they're browsing too much, that's actually a bad sign, right? Because that means the habitat can't support them. And you're saying you want to be careful about like converting. Listen, this isn't the 70s anymore. It's okay to cut down a tree. It's okay to cut down a bunch of trees. When we manage forests in a sustainable way and you're cutting them down, it actually benefits wildlife, including elk, deer, turkey,
Grassland
grouse,
songbirds. Yep.
songbirds,
Yes. So many
right?
of our non-game
snakes,
species as well.
right? Like it's okay to cut down trees. Like it actually benefits more wildlife to cut down trees than to allow basically a savanna of nothingness, a desert
Right.
underneath.
We don't want
trees,
ferns,
right?
We don't want an understory of ferns.
As someone who has 70 acres, that the majority of that is ferns underneath, it is maddening how slow the tree regeneration is,
Yep.
right? So it's okay to cut down the trees.
In fact, forestry is our biggest habitat management